this is Maria. Welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to break down understanding Montessori, what Montessori method is, how it was developed, who is it for, and how is it different, and what is your succession plan coming from a Montessori school into traditional system of education. If you're new to my channel, I have two kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I've personally been doing Montessori at home for about 3 years. I also work for a Montessori school, so I've been involved a lot, especially in the preschool age. So anywhere from about 18 months up until the age of 6. If you're interested in more of a Montessori content, make sure to check out my playlist, Montessori, also activities for children, because I do not only Montessori at home, we do lots of stuff because we're a screen-free household, so I don't let my children spend time on the iPads or iPhones. We are busy. So make sure to check all this out, and now let's do it. Marie Montessori developed her method almost 100 years ago, and the way it was developed is by her observing the children of multiple ages. So she would provide them the toys that were available at the time versus the traditional methods, wrote her observations, and based on that, a lot of materials, a lot of curriculum was developed. Originally, when Marie Montessori developed her curriculum, she focused on the preschool education, what we consider preschool today. So it's somewhere from 18 months up until 6 years of age. Depending on the country you live in, those things might be a little bit different. Now, Montessori schools right now do go over into elementary and the middle school, but the rest of the curriculum and materials weren't developed by Marie Montessori herself. They were developed by her children, her success, and people that believed in the method. A few things that I frequently hear when I talk about Montessori and me sending my kids to Montessori school are, first of all, well, this method has been developed so long ago, I mean, things have changed. And the second one, oh, my child needs more structure because Montessori is wishy-washy. Neither of the two ideas are correct, and that is why. A lot of Montessori ideas actually are based on common sense that today is supported by studies. And here's my number one that I would like to talk to you about is the education of the senses. That's what Marie Montessori believed in, and basically what it is letting your child experiment with things, listen, smell, touch, and that's how children learn. And here's where the science behind it comes in. Child's prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that is actually helps us make decisions in the future and also helps us regulate our feelings and be such things as empathy, does not develop up until the age of 3. The reason why young children stick things in their mouth, touch everything, dig their hands in dirt, and thrive from the sensitive stimulation is because that's the way how they develop their brains. So another part of it is also the toddler tantrums or any kind of tantrums is because they still do not have a physical ability to control themselves. So it's a learning process, it's them growing their brains, and that is supported by studies today. So what is different in Montessori approach in the development of senses versus a traditional education? Well, one thing I want to mention that a lot of the schools and preschools today actually started already implementing it because there is a science behind it. So you can see sensory bins even in the traditional preschools where before they weren't there. And one of the things is handling the small objects. Education of the hand is also part of education of the senses because we start with a grasp pattern, then we transition to a tripod grasp, and then we actually have a pinch grip that actually allows us to write. And the child goes through the same progression they develop. And in Montessori's system, for example, they will have in a practical life, they will have 2 plates with beans, and there will be a set of 3. And they will go from the easiest one to the hardest one. The easiest one will be for your child, it will have bigger beans and bigger thorns for them to manipulate it, and as it goes, it gets finer and more difficult. In toddler classroom, sensory education can include pouring, for example, and that's a big part of, honestly, all young children love doing it at about 12 months. They have a glass, they have a cup, and they just start pouring. What it is, it's not only sensory education and play with water, which all young children love water play, but it also learning hand-eye coordination, and that helps to develop your brain. And because Montessori method was developed by observing the children, all the materials build on each other, just as I mentioned, when it goes from easier to a more difficult one. And when the child is done with this specific set of materials, in the Montessori curriculum, they move on to the next. As I explained to you just right now, the thorns getting smaller and finer prepares the child to be able to hold pencils. And in the Montessori school, they move on to the next set of activities that will fine-tune their muscles in their hands for them to be able to write. Now, it could be beadwork, and the beads will go from a larger ones to a smaller ones. Also, as a math, as an example, it could be first tracing the shapes, and they usually have a station where they have different pencils and different cups and colors, and they have also the stencils, and they have a piece of paper. Every child comes and prepares their own little set, and they sit down and they start tracing it. After they complete the book, they move on to the next shape. Here is the actually the study behind it is that when we learn how to be able to write, when the children do that, they start first with tracing it, then they start copying it, and then they are able to independently reproduce it. As an example, they start with tracing the triangles, then they're able to look at the triangle and draw it, and then you're able to tell them, draw me a triangle, and they will draw a triangle. Another common sense part of a Montessori curriculum that makes a lot of sense once you start looking into it, and actually when you have children and you watch your children yourself, is the practical life. Toddlers and younger preschoolers, like age 3, are really, really into helping you cook, helping you clean, being involved in what you do. And there is a reason in it, because children learn by copying and mimicking you. Their first 3 years of life they spending by learning from you and copying everything that you do. You go traditional toy store, and that's why there is toy brooms, mops, squirters, everything that you can imagine. Because they are doing what you are doing, that's the survival mechanism. Maria Montessori observed it. So the practical life curriculum is a very big part. And one of the things that they teach you there is that don't try to distract your kid. Teach them what you can do and give them small tasks that they are able to complete. That builds the independence, it supports the development of children, and they also have this sense of, oh, I accomplished it, I'm contributing to the family life. They actually focus a lot with the toddlers on self-dressing, and I mean, who doesn't want their children to be able to dress? And they give them ways on how they can dress independently at a very young age. They show them how to lay out the shirt, so to be able to put it on, how to put your feet in the shoes. They just have that system in place. They also actually, that is a big difference from a traditional daycare or preschool care, is that they have potties in the toddler class from 18 months to 3, because they have such a big age gap of children. And the younger children actually start toilet training by watching the older ones. So you actually benefit from that. I don't know how every school is, but in our school, self-toileting is actually part of the curriculum. Now that there's been such a long time that Montessori actually has been popular, it's coming up and down in its popularity, there are tests where they compared children that go to Montessori schools and children that go to a traditional schools. There was a study done, and Montessori kids score higher in math and literacy. And one of the reasons why is because Montessori materials are all based on the way children learn. Because children learn with their hands, with their eyes, they need to touch it, they need to visualize it. And all of the Montessori materials are very visual, very touchy-feely. And it's very age appropriate for the development up until age of 6, which is... Now I want to touch upon the concept of that Montessori is not a structured environment. It is completely wrong. Montessori is a very structured environment. When you come into the classroom, each area is set up for certain activities. There is an area for practical life where a lot of the younger preschoolers, which is about age of 3, spend most of their time perfecting their fine motor skills. And there is an area for math, there is an area for languages, because in a lot of Montessori schools, it's a very inclusive school system, so they learn a lot about different cultures and different languages as well. Then there is an area that is focused specifically on numbers and counting. Then there is an area on the language development again, and there is geography, sciences, and art areas as well. So it is structured, it is organized. What's the difference is that the teacher doesn't tell the kids, all right, now it's time to sit down at your desks and I'm going to lecture at the desk. It's always done peer to peer. So if there is a group of, let's say, 10 kindergartners in a Montessori primary classroom, the teacher will pull the kindergartners and they will have their material that they're going to learn, whether it's spelling or multiplication, wherever there is learning at that specific day. And if there are kids that are younger in that classroom, but they are ready and they're interested, they can partake in that learning of that subject. The major difference as far as the curriculum goes is the materials that are used. Montessori materials are extremely visual, and as an example, there is a classical Montessori material, Pink Tower. It's a set of blocks that stack up on each other, and the smallest block is 1/10 of the largest. They use a metric system because Montessori is Italian, but your child visually can see, oh, okay, so this is what 1/10 of this looks like. And then there is multiple things that you can do with that specific material. They have the cards where they have to match up a certain progression of those blocks. So it's all visual and it's all built up upon each other. And another good thing, it's always self-correcting, because if you have done it wrong, you will see it. Nobody needs to tell. Well, as far as the curriculum goes, and I think that's a lot of concerns for a lot of parents that aren't familiar with Montessori, the baseline of the curriculum is absolutely the same. They still learn spell words. They are learning how to add, subtract. They actually start learning it a little earlier than in traditional schooling. And as far as, again, it not being structured, it is very structured. When you come in, just do a tour, you will be amazed. You will see a kid, a boy that can be running around during the recess, sitting there figuring out how to multiply certain things with the greatest focus and concentration. That's what they are actually known for, is to create the environment for children to be focused on their works. There is no free-for-all in Montessori classroom. I've experienced it so many times, again, because I work there. Children are just so intensely immersed into what they're doing, and they love what they're doing. And I think one of the main principles of Montessori is to teach you to love learning. When it comes to tests, there are public Montessori schools, and if you go into public Montessori schools, you're actually gonna have the same testing system as the traditional schools will, because they're accountable to the county. If it is a private Montessori school, they don't do the tests, but they do the assessments, and they won't let your child fall behind. Now, there is one important thing I want to touch upon. Montessori is a buzzword, and a lot of times you see Montessori and you go in and there is nothing Montessori about it. And another thing, just because it is a Montessori school, even if they use Montessori materials, doesn't mean it's a good school. So it's pretty much the same. If you are looking to put your child in a traditional school, you'll go out there and you'll find out the turnaround of the teachers, what is the success stories, what is the succession plan from this elementary school, where are they going afterwards, what is the alumni there, and you do need the same for the Montessori school. Just because it has the name Montessori doesn't mean it's a great school. So you still have to research. For example, in the area that we live, there is probably about 6 Montessori schools. Some of them are private, some of them are public. And I've toured some of them, and I fell in love with the one that we go into. So bottom line, you always have to do your research. Just because it's called Montessori doesn't mean it's the best of the best. It might be a terrible school and still use Montessori materials and have a huge turnaround of teachers. I hope this video was helpful and gave you some more information and more ideas. If you have any questions, make sure to ask me in the comments below. And if you love this video, make sure to give me a like and subscribe to my channel for more educational, inspiring content on Montessori, activities for children, and just mom life